Hi, this is Christine Rice, and for my second tech set, I focused on the book Maniac McGee by Jerry Spinelli. I focused this tech set around American themes, one important theme being racism and segregation of African Americans. I think this is a very important topic for students in grades 5 through 7, and I love this book for its raw description of racism in American society. This book falls under the genre of realistic fiction, and it follows a young orphan named Jeffrey, who searches for a home in Two Mills, Pennsylvania, but instead finds racism and hardship as a young African-American boy. His story is one that is inspiring, as Jeffrey succeeds despite the prejudice of others, due to hard work. My first lesson plan would take place in the content area of history. After reading the book, I would ask my students to research two major government acts, being the Slavery Abolition Act of 1833 and the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I would then facilitate a class discussion in which we would discuss why these laws were necessary in America and where our country might be today if they had not been enacted. I would then continue the discussion by asking what societal boundaries still exist today, such as race, religion, politics, and so on. And I would ask what prejudice results from these issues. Finally, I would have my class spend time in the computer lab, completing this online activity, which focuses on segregation and its detrimental effects in the world. I found this activity on the Teachers First website, which includes teachers' favorite digital tools, and the link is included on the bottom of the slide. So the website is called Parable of the Polygons. And the website starts by showing the difference between two shapes, squares and triangles. And it asks the students to drag the shapes to make them happy because they become unhappy when they are all together with ones that are like them. So here the student would take a shape that is unhappy and drag it to shapes that are different from them so that it will become happy like this one. It then goes on to address small biases, which then lead to large collective biases in a society. So the students can adjust the shape's individual bias so that the world does not become segregated. And here it shows a depiction of a segregated society. And as you can see, the shapes are not happy. So the students are finally asked to change the segregation of the society and to make it look more mingled and therefore create a happier society and a more productive one and a better one to live in. So I love this website and I think it would be really great for this particular history lesson. My next lesson would apply to the content area of writing, specifically in the genre of poetry. This second text set also includes a book of poetry by Emily Dickinson. So after we studied these poems, I would bring my students back to our lessons on racism and prejudice that we learned in Maniac McGee. I would then ask them to write a poem about prejudice that is caused by societal differences. Their poems must be at least 50 words long, and the students will be asked to identify at least 3 literary devices that we learned in our poetry unit. Here is an artifact and a poem that I wrote in order to demonstrate the assignment to my students. Hills. I look at the green, matchless hills, and I wonder if they were ever all the same. If they were all once flat, one monotonous shade, with the same exact flowers on every window pane, in a town where there's only one right way, and no one complains. So the devices that I highlighted are end rhyme, occurring in lines 5 and 7 with pain, and complains. Say Shura, which is a sudden break in one line of poetry, which occurs with the comma on line 3, and redundancy, which occurs in line 6 with only and one placed right next to each other. The 4 other books I chose for my second book critique are 12 Years a Slave by Solomon Northup, The Complete Poems of Emily Dickinson, edited by Thomas H. Johnson, The City of Ember by Jeanne Deprow, and Lincoln, A Photobiography by Russell Friedman. 12 Years a Slave is an autobiographical work that would be great to read after Maniac McGee, as it focuses on similar themes like racism, slavery, and segregation, but still introduces a completely new genre to the class of autobiography. I think this is important because it's extremely helpful when introducing a new genre or unit to the class to connect back to things that the students have already learned in order to make them feel more comfortable with the new material. And secondly, The City of Ember is a modern fantasy which takes place in an underground city, which is suddenly threatened by collapse and ruin. So Lena and Dune, the main characters, must follow clues from the old city makers in order to escape the underground city. This book provides countless opportunities for creative thinking assignments in which students can connect these fantasy events to real-life issues in our world today. So again, I'm Christine, and this concludes my second book critique.